PokeClass is sponsored by CollectorsCash.com, who now have your new set Next Destinies in stock at amazing prices. Get your boxes, sealed products and single cards like Mewtwo EX for the most competitive prices around, as well as all of your current format goodies within easy reach. If you're looking to stock up on anything Pokemon or any other card game for that matter, then head over to CollectorsCash.com after the show. This weekend brings the last weekend of K32 competition in the United States, whereas all we have left over here in the UK is the second set of Battle Roads and then Nationals in June. And thinking back to all of the deck analysis I've done on all the top tier decks over the past few weeks, I realised I've forgotten just one: Durant. Durant is easily a tier 1 deck at the moment, with its fairly solid matchups across the board and array of tech options to tech for each metagame. However, something coming up in Dark Rush in particular is going to be fending off this metal ant all by itself, and that's Heatmore. So while Durant is a tier 1 deck at the moment and might be your choice for regionals, I thought I'd do a deck analysis on what could be Durant's last stand. So when scans of Noble Victories came out, Durant gained some limelight over the more powerful and rare 130 HP players like Kyurem, Terrakion, etc. But only because people thought it would be a great gimmicky deck. Devour lets you discard a card from your opponent's deck for each Durant you have in play for just a single metal energy, as I'm sure most of you know. But when it first came out, it wasn't thought that just 4 cards per turn would be quick enough to mill a 60 card deck. However, when we came to City Championships, this deck started winning, and if you fast forward to now, Durant is a tier 1 deck with loads of tricks up its sleeve. So let's have a look at a quick skeleton list to start building this, to test against, or play yourself while you can. The first thing is the low count of Pokemon, so we won't be spending long on this at all. The 4 Durant is fairly obvious since it is your main strategy, and you need 4 out on the field to be using Devour for the maximum amount of cards every single turn. Vice Grip can become used to attack in extremely strange situations when coming across tricky Pokemon that are weak to metal, but this won't be happening frequently at all. On to your second Pokemon, which is vital to getting out of your Durants, and that is Rotom. Rotom's mischievous trick Poker Power allows you to switch the top card of your deck with a card from your prizes. The situation this aids is when it comes to one of 4 of your Durants being prized, and since we don't have Azelf in this format, this is the only way you're going to be able to fish out those Durants effectively. However, with the evolution of this deck, Rotom has become a fairly decent attacker as well, when paired with Prism Energy. One of the best ways to tackle Durant is with a Zekrom, if you play it of course, since you can Bolt Strike twice and then use the recall damage to fuel outrage KOs for the rest of the game. The anti-strategy to this is being able to use Rotom's Plasma Arrow attack for 20 times the amount of energy attached to the Pokemon of choice and knock out their main attacker. This can put the opponent on the back foot, since setting up as per a usual game can be risky with the array of stalling techniques Durant carries, and that is what we shall move on to next. Your trainers and supporters hit over 40 in this list, with room for even more, which is a good thing since we need to be able to keep these Durants alive and in play for as long as it takes to devour the complete deck. First up are your supporters, which are mainly focused on getting 4 Durant out on the first turn, your ideal start, which is why we run 4 Collector, the perfect card to search out 3 Durant or a Rotom if one of your Durant is prized. It's a simple card that doesn't need too much explanation, although some players may like to play less of these and more durable and levelable to save play for shuffle draw such as Pont and Juniper. The next card is Twins, which works so well in this deck as you always plan to be behind in prizes, as you don't want to be taking many at all, and works as your main source of searching for things to keep your Devours for 4 every single turn. I would argue that this is one of the toughest parts of playing the deck, since you need to make your decisions well to stay in the game in the long run. It's very easy to get caught up in devouring for 4 every turn, but sometimes it's actually more worth your while to devour for just the 3 this turn, but make sure you have a decent follow-up turn with what you search for from Twins. Many new players of Durant will take this mind frame of just keeping 4 Durant in play, regardless of what their hand is looking like, but play with a bit more and you should be able to make decisions that prevail in the long run of the game. Up next are your 2 cards that fit in pretty much every deck in this format, Pont and Professor Juniper. I have put 4 of each of these in this list because I think it's of utmost importance to keep your hand cycling through as much as possible, and dead hands can happen a fair bit with this deck if you just run dry, since you need the resources to keep Durant in play. 8 draw supporters paired with 4 twins should be more than enough to keep you running through your deck every single turn, especially when you have 2 poker gear at the end of the list. And those are all your supporters, so now we have the resources you need to stall out as much of the opponent as possible, since a single turn of lockdown can be the difference between winning and losing a game. The first one is Junk Arm, which doesn't really need any explanation anymore. It's just your go-to place to reuse any trainer you like in whichever situation of the game, and it makes your discard pile a flexible resource for any play you decide to make. 4 Dual Ball is another card which tries to ensure that you get the turn 1 Devour for 4, without having to use a supporter for the turn. Starting with 2 of these in your hand, or just the one with Junk Arm, assures you a decent start in the game, but even better when you can use a draw supporter for the turn, such as Pon or Juniper. Up next is 4 Eviolite, which is one of your main ways of keeping your 70 HP Durants alive for at least another turn to devour for more cards. Being 90 HP keeps Durant alive that extra turn against any Thunderous and Tornadus on the opponent's field, which can be crucial to winning a game, since they either need to fish for plus power with their draw cards or hit you twice. Both situations aren't too bad for you. And the next card follows up your Durant finally getting KO'd after Eviolite damage has taken effect. Revive puts a basic Pokemon from the discard pile to the bench, which is perfect for you since you only run basics and you need to get them in play over and over again to stay in the game. Not much else we can say about this card really, it does what it says on the tin and aids your strategy in the long run. Now the next 3 cards are your main culprits for stalling out your opponent's side of the field, and we start with 3 Pokemon Capture. Your main strategy with this is to just capture the Pokemon with 2 or ideally higher retreat cost to force your opponent to burn resources to move out of the way and continue KOing Durants. For each turn your opponent misses being able to retreat popular targets such as Electric and any EXs, you get a free extra turn to discard more key cards from your opponent's deck. Perfect. The next 2 cards are Energy Manipulators, which put your opponent behind even when they do start attacking and KOing Durant. 3 Crushing Hammer is your main setback card, since every heads you flip means that you can choose an energy on your opponent's side of the field and discard it, be it basic or special energy. This puts your opponent behind in energy attachments for high energy attack costs such as Hurricane and Disaster Volt, making your opponent miss another crucial turn of prize taking. Lost Remover is similar but provides a definite effect for removing special energy from play altogether into the lost zone. This is predominantly effective in the CMT matchup and anything else that runs Tornadoes, since it puts them behind 2 energy rather than the usual 1 from a Crushing Hammer heads. And last but by no means least is Poker Gear, a pure consistency booster for you to try and get that turn 1 collector for a turn 1 Devour for 4 more often. It can also help you out when your hand is starting to run dry of resources and you need a Juniper, Pon or Twins to save you from getting behind in the Devours. The last part is Energy, which you run 4 Special Metal just to sponge that extra 10 damage, effectively giving your Durant 100 HP if you count Eviolite as well. You also run 4 Normal Metal for obvious reasons, which seems low, but with the counter Special Metal and 2 Prisms for your Devours, you should be set. The Prisms are for Rotom's attack, if it's ever needed, and that is pretty much your skeleton list summed up for you. Now onto possible options to make your list your own. The first is going to help you find those Durant a lot quicker when they end up in your prizes, and that is Alflipograph 4. This card has a simple text that may be hard to read, but it simply allows you to look at your face down prize cards and then place them back face down. This allows you to get a nice sneak peek of what you'll be putting back into your deck with Rotom's power, and may even help you find prized resources to put into the deck, even if you don't have a Durant prized. Next is Level Ball, a card introduced from our newest set and is your alternative to Dual Ball if you don't like the flips not going your way. Since Durant is only 70 HP, you can freely search out single Durants for each Level Ball played, but just being able to search out one can be a little bit slow. Maybe running these alongside Dual Ball and Collector will help if you can find the room, but I would personally want to add in more Poker Gear, if you can, to fish out those collectors rather than searching out just one with Level Ball. The next card helps you be more aggressive with Rotom, and that is Black Belt. This card only works when you're behind in prizes, so it's perfect for a deck that doesn't even take them. By using this card, you can rack up your Rotom's Plasma Arrow attack by 40, which can be helpful in various situations where the opponent has tried to avoid the possibility of Rotom even coming into play. This can be a gimmicky play, but does work well if you can pull it off. Another card is N, another draw supporter you can include to disrupt the opponent and keep your own hand cycling well. However, N will be putting cards back into your opponent's deck, but it can buy you a ton of time if your opponent's field is poor and you're ending them down to a low amount of cards. I'm still not sold on the card enough to include it into a skeleton, but some testing will sell your opinion on whether it's worth putting cards back into the deck to stop your opponent from hoarding deck refillers such as Pont and ends of their own. And the last variants of the deck were brought to us through Next Destinies and pair well with the card just mentioned, and they come in very aggressive forms. The first is including Shaman EX and regular Shaman, which work well when your opponent is just a lone attacker and a weak board and just a couple of prizes left. Since you run Prism Energy, we can drop Shaman, use Celebration Wind to move energy over to Shaman EX, and then start sweeping after playing an N with Revenge Blast to possibly take the game that way. I've seen this happen many a times and really takes advantage of being able to use late game ends. This can also happen with Mewtwo EX, since it only requires a double colours energy to attack and can sweep nicely too if energy is still on the opponent's field. And that is pretty much your roundup of everyone's favourite deck, Durant. If you're struggling to find anything really competitive that is cheap to make, then go for this competitive uncommon, since they aren't that hard to find at all. However, I believe Durant is on its last legs at the moment, since Dark Rush is getting really close now, including Pokemon like Darkrai, which aid free retreat, and the main player Heatmor, which KOs Durant specifically just for a colourless energy. The Wrath of Heatmor is something that must be tested in a competitive environment, but if you want to take Durant for a spin before it becomes a more risky play, then now is your time. Thanks for watching this week's episode of PokeClass. Please make sure you subscribe in the top right hand corner in a second, and then click the like button in the bottom left hand corner. It would really help me out. Also, make sure you stay tuned to my channel for upcoming PTCGO games and the continuation of my new PokeTips series, and I'll see you all next week.